A couple people have told me that my analysis has a science to it, and initially I disagreed. Scientist by Twice is one of the first songs I talked about on my channel, and that was an actual analysis of the scientific aspect to its reception. But I really wasn't thinking things through in terms of the way the song was written. When I write a paper, I usually mimic the writing style of what I analyze. In this way, I can emphasize the effects of what I'm talking about on another level. But regarding Scientist, I was completely missing out on the actual psychology behind the decisions it makes, and I really enjoy psychology. As a result, I often think to myself about how everything in life can be broken down to a science if you really want to. The electrical signals, if you will, the action potentials, and the dendrites on the other end of the synapse. When I reread these lyrics, I was looking for patterns, and I ended up realizing that there was a well thought out psychology to the speaker of this song. There was a science to it, and I was going to get to the bottom of it. Take this as my detraction of the sentiment that literature and science are sometimes separate and not to intermingle. I think I understood some important pieces of the song on an implicit level, but it was definitely important for me as part of this process to write out my annotations and notes. I had to actually process the implications of it all. The first thing I noticed was a structural pattern in that first verse. They ask a question, then deny the existence of something, and repeat. It's quite systematic at the very least. After that, there's a kind of controlled chaos in their description of pushing and pulling, and they kind of directly address the subject in those last three lines. I feel like they establish a level of irony in asking questions about asking questions and speaking ill of science. You have to ask if the entire thing can be considered merely rhetorical. They establish an interesting relationship with psychic distance, in my opinion. On the one hand, they tell the subject to stay away from their heart, and you have to ask what can be said about the speaker. They're kind of viewing themselves through the subject, which is not good faith by, of course, existential standards. You also see the specific progression of their inquiry. They pay attention to themselves and egg on the subject to pay attention to them, which could be like meeting their intentions in the middle or prioritizing their own personal impact on the human essence. I think with this in mind, the discussion of angles is kind of interesting. Angles could be physical, or they could obviously be talking about angles like perspectives. Personally, I think it's interesting to actually focus on funny the physical angle. In existentialism, there is a notion that objects, unlike humans, have essence before existence because they are man made with essence in mind. Looking at someone through an angle on multiple levels is almost denying one's essence through othering. They also talk about specifically finding answers, implying the answers do exist, which is an interesting way to take a stance on the issue, especially as part of how they choose to give the subject advice. They use a lot of low language with ain't and need know, but they also reduce the topics of conversation to a minus, a mere symbol. In saying don't try to be, they are talking as if you can create essence, but they simultaneously put that essence down in just asking why so serious, not even a full clause. They goad them with questions about classes, clearly curious themselves, but relegating the results to a binary pass or fail. They also refer to the subject's line of questioning as it twice, almost like they don't actually understand what is being asked. On the other hand, they stuff their personal impressions of things in the same line, their analysis practically amounting to too much in itself. In the third verse, they use dynamic diction like crash and fall. It has almost a slapstick quality, like they were thinking depictions of physicality would destroy the problem at hand, but as energy cannot be created or destroyed, it ends very much how it begins, literally with "got a crush on me." The reference Einstein and Frankenstein describing their specific qualities that we do know, but they choose to humanize Frankenstein, the monster, making us question why the speaker wants to distance themselves from humanity. And then they question why the subject doesn't know love is fun because there are no answers. We have to question if this is something they can know or if it's just a theory. Is love pursuing a theory, even if not in a contemplative way? Human essence is intermingled by default, but do we truly know each other? Are we inherently defined by each other? Is that why they're upset because the subject's questioning defines them? Love is not an answer so much as a solution and a tool, like a screw, which they mention, something that can be loose but can serve a simple purpose. Talking about a fool who knows only one and nothing else, they implement further psychic distance, almost like love is partly about distancing yourself from others, and you have to ask to what extent and why. In the refrain, their sentiments are very simple. Syntactically, it's actually even less than that without subjects. Does the narrative subject even exist? This could, first of all, be an apostrophe without a subject listening, but the speaker might also just not care about the subject on the same level that they clearly care about these questions. It minimizes the subject's existence and it's relegating the subject into the position of a victim of the speaker's othering. In the outro, the speaker says, you ain't a science. It's like a definition of the you, and it defines them with low language while contrasting them with science, something perceived as formal but also basic to life as it is. There's a loss of some humanity in all of this, and it makes me question if that is also a part of love according to the song. So yeah, I'll say it. Scientist is fun but also well written, and I genuinely don't understand why it's one of Twice's less acclaimed songs. Genuinely, it plays with the nuances of literature and almost implements a science to the way it portrays literature, like I said, but humanity too. You think you get it, but it takes deliberate processing to get everything you can out of it. A lot of stylistic decisions here are obvious, even though very specific, but for me personally, I didn't initially see the reasons behind them every step of the way, and I just like getting to the root of a writer or writer's choices. It absolutely speaks to different fields as it does people, and to me, I imagine it's kind of like watching music videos with lore as someone who painstakingly pieces every detail together. If you don't know the lore, which I usually don't, it can still be a cool music video with great visuals and all of that. You can absolutely get enjoyment out of these things, and it's not wrong to not analyze media in that way, but for the right person, that learning process really scratches an itch in their brain. It's just kind of addictive. Those damn electrical signals are at it again, if nothing else. Look, there's some serotonin in, and who passes up serotonin? You get it, I hope. Otherwise, this video didn't have too much of a point now, did it?